What's up, Gator Nation? Zach Albaverdi and Nick Del Toro here, and we have reached the end of the regular season, and that means it is Florida State week, and we're going to talk Seminoles on this show today with Ira Schoffel from War Chant to get some perspective on the Noles and what they've got going on, as both teams will be featuring a backup quarterback in this year's edition of the rivalry. Nick, how are you, my friend?
Doing well, doing well. We're hosting Thanksgiving, Zach. So my parents,
Is that a first for you?
At the first of this size. So my wife and I, with 6-month anniversary coming up in 8 days, we're hosting my family, my mom, dad, sister, her mom and dad, her brother, sister, their 6-year-old, their 3-year-old.
Oh, man.
2 people from Lauren's office are coming, and I think our total number will be 12 or 13, including us tomorrow. So a lot of movement at the Del Toro household. 3 dogs.
We were going to have upwards of 20 people, and then had some drop out.
I love a dropout. Love a good dropout. Him. We got 20 people coming over. So
what is your favorite Thanksgiving dish, Nicholas?
Yes, let's get into this.
Let's get into it. Let's talk about the important stuff.
Aunt Lori's greens are my favorite dish. Shout out to Vari. My dad was doing some yard work at the house today. I always loved that, and it reminded me of Lori's greens. My favorite dish, I'm more of a ham guy than a turkey guy.
Me too.
But when we're going sides, it's got to be, I think I'm a mac and cheese guy on the sides.
You're speaking my language, Nick.
I think I'm mac and cheese, but listen,
my mom
it's
makes
everything.
Specific mac and cheese too, okay. Homemade mac and cheese.
Okay, I had
That's what
I did grilled mac and cheese one year. So I put it on the grill, and on the top rack I put some bacon wrapped jalapeno poppers. So then I have those on the rack, and now you've got like the bacon and the cheese and dripping down into the mac, and you get some smokiness. Some bacon in the mac. That was the move that year. But my sister is taking control of all the cooking. She loves cooking, so I'm just showing up, baby. Just showing up, watching football. And it's gluttony and football.
Count on it. What's your Thanksgiving dessert?
It's gotta be apple pie. Apple pie is my go-to.
We got fights in my house, and then my family over my mom's apple pies. My brother tries to take 2 home.
Ooh, that is gluttonous, sir.
It's a big party now. Yeah.
It's Thanksgiving, not thanks. Take all of mom's apple pie home with you.
Like my mom has to make one just for him to take home, but then
clearly there's a favorite son.
Then once the 3 or 4 other ones that she brings, if one of them don't get 8 or it just has like 2 or 3 slices cut out, he's taking that home too. It's war at the end of the day. Thankfully, I'm
bullied. You're getting bullied by your brother.
I don't go for the apple pie as much, so he upsets my wife more than he does me and everybody else. So, but anyways, that's enough food talk.
We got some good ones here.
Ooh.
Got some good pumpkin cheesecake. That might be a move. I never knew until I tried them both, like same year. The difference in like pumpkin and like a pumpkin pie, and then there's just like a is it like a yam pie or? But I was like, oh, those are the same kind of things, or sweet potato pie. Because pumpkin pie and sweet potato pie look the same, and I'm like, oh, these are the same thing. And then you try one, and you're like, okay, not the same thing. Pumpkin pie all over this, over sweet potato pie all day.
We got scoop of raisin ice cream.
Look at Meme Lord Perry already's got the cheat codes. We apple pie is the good one. When you can add a little bit of crumble on top of it, like a little cinnamon crumble on top of the apple pie. Never had bad food take, Zach.
This conversation, he's like, "Ooh, this sounds. What did I walk into?"
I've never had a bad food take. This is the best food week of the year.
There's no doubt about it. Let's switch this up, and as we bring Ira in to talk Florida and Florida State. And welcome, Ira. How's it going, my friend?
It's going good, guys. How are you guys doing?
Man, it's good. End of the season, man. We're here.
When the team you cover starts 5-2 and is now sitting 5-7 5 weeks later, a lot of Thanksgiving food talk.
5-6, 5-6, man, 5-6.
Oh, sorry. On the doorstep of 5-7. On the doorstep.
Yeah. And when we say end of season, this is not even close to the end for Florida State if things go their way on Saturday. So we'll get into all of that. How's the year been treating you in this fall?
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, it's funny, like, this all happened so quickly. Florida State, it was just 2 years ago. The Florida State was sitting in that situation where they're trying to get to a bowl game. When they went down to Gainesville last time, they were trying to get to a bowl game, and so we probably had 4 or 5 years of just kind of not great football and not a lot of expectations, and then like almost overnight, because last year was a little bit ahead of schedule. Going 10-3 last year was kind of a little bit ahead of schedule. And then now here you're all of a sudden we're having to pay attention to the college football playoff selection committee show. I haven't watched that thing in 9 years. And it changes. It kind of changes everything when it just changes the job when you actually have to cover some of that stuff.
And a question about that real quick, because I think when I saw Jordan Travis go down, and based on the way that the playoff committees, and they change every 4 years, but based on the way that they've handled injuries, were you expecting Florida State to drop out like they did, or did you think, hey, there's still a body of work and a resume to keep the Noles in the college football playoff even without Jordan Travis?
Yeah, I think most FSU fans and media expected that to happen just because it felt like it might happen a week earlier.
Sure.
The problem they've had is two problems they've had is, one, some of their wins that they thought would be marquee wins have just kind of deteriorated. Clemson now having so many losses. Yeah. Duke, when Florida State beat Duke was a top 15-ish team, and now they keep losing. And Miami's obviously not had the season that anybody thought. So, going into
Florida's 5-6,
right? So that wouldn't help them if they win too much. But I do think it's going to, I still think if Florida State stays undefeated, if they win these next 2 games, and if they look decent doing it, I still think they'll get in, because obviously Michigan, Ohio State, one of them is going to get bounced. I think they're only in danger. Obviously, if they lose a game, they're completely out. But if they just don't look good in these 2 games, like it looks like the Travis injury is going to derail them, but they still somehow find a way to win, then maybe they get left out. But I think most people are expecting them to be in if they can regroup and win these 2 games.
And you got to watch out for undefeated Washington. 1-loss Oregon, I think, could even hop over. And FSU that, let's say, beats Florida by 1 score, then goes to the ACC championship game and scuffles there and wins by a score. You're thinking, we'll put Bo Nix and 1-loss Oregon in over, even an undefeated Florida State.
Yeah, to me, that's the concern. That would be the scenario where you'd be concerned.
Yeah.
But, again, at this point, after, again, the way I think most of us were thinking midway through the second quarter, late in the first quarter, Saturday night when Jordan Travis went down, you start thinking, I don't know, are they going to come back and win this game? So, and now at this point, I think, a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I think Florida State fans there's like all this nervous energy about how far can they go. And now it's just like, well, we'll see. We'll see what it looks like.
Well, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, Ira, I do want to revisit the kind of the Norvell tenure and what it's been like covering that from your perspective. And I'm sure it's a conversation that Florida fans would appreciate right now, given where they're at. And this was kind of a topic we touched on last week with Eli Drinkwitz and kind of the patience that it's taken there at Missouri for him to kind of get that program going. What has it been like for Norvell building at FSU going through some growing pains and some down years, and then to get to this point.
Yeah, and if I can go back a little bit further, just to the Willie Taggart era too, because I think those are both kind of important to think about.
Florida fans loved that era. It was a great movie here in Gainesville. They did not want it to end.
Just too short for you.
Yeah.
I think to me, like I talked to, I've got some friends that, close friends that are huge Gator fans, and they started complaining about Napier at the end of last season, and then again early this season. And I'm like, you guys just need to relax. Like, I just think that unless it's a disaster, and that was the situation with Willie. Behind the scenes, Willie didn't just get fired for the wins and losses. He got fired because the staff he hired was not very good, both in terms of on the field and off the field. Practices were not run well. There was stuff just going on inside the team, inside the locker room, and relationships. It just everything was going in the wrong direction. Sure. So the administration, like, I didn't think they were going to fire Willie after the second year or even late in the second year, just because I thought the money was too much, and they'd at least wait one more year for the buyout to come down some. But it was so bad behind the scenes that they felt like it doesn't matter. We have to do it now. So they cut ties. With Norvell, it was the exact opposite. Like, things behind the scenes were really good, even though you couldn't see it on the field. So to me, that's where the administration has to have some fortitude, because it's tough. I get it, man. It's hard for them when the fans are complaining and you feel like you start losing recruits, and you feel like you're not going to be able to sell as many tickets the next year. Now it becomes a financial decision. And so I get it. But I also think if they think they've got the right guy, they really need to stick with him, because if you don't and you switch gears again, like now you're spinning your wheels. So in Norvell's situation, I think he had a couple things going for him. One was he was doing things the right way behind the scenes. There was a lot of, it looked with the way it was supposed to look behind the scenes. So they felt like, okay, let's give him a chance. Also they were still on the hook for a lot of money for Willie Taggart. So there was, and Florida State's not flush with money. So, it just felt like, they need to ride this out a little bit. Plus he had a couple of big excuses. The COVID season was his first year, which you can't really hold that against him. And then the situation he inherited was such a mess. And I guess that's the thing. What creates so much pressure, though, is the coaches in your class. Like, so with Norvell's situation, that second year, Sam Pittman had a great year at Arkansas. Dave Aranda had a great year at Baylor. I think Mike Leach was having, like, a bunch of coaches that took over around the same time as he did were having success. And it was like, well, why could they do it in year two and you can't? And the argument I made to Florida State fans was, these aren't all the same situation. And if you come into a program, and I don't know as much about Florida, obviously a fraction of what you guys know, but from what I've read and heard, if the previous coaching staff was not recruiting well, I don't know. Are you going to hold them to the same standard as some other school where they got a coach who came in where there was a lot of talent?
Yeah, they were loaded. Yeah.
So to me, that's the thing. Like, I'm not saying it's patience in every situation, but I just think that what we're so eager to compare, like, why could that guy do it in year one or year two and you can't? And it's like, man, if you switch coaches, it might have worked out differently. And so that's kind of the way I look at it.
It sounds like the exact same thing that we're going through, because you look at Brian Kelly was probably the big name. And then you look at, LSU was in the SEC championship game last year. They're not this year, but they only have 3 losses, and they're super exciting to watch. It also sounds familiar as not having probably the money to fire somebody and take on a huge buyout while also paying a coach to talk about your football team. When
I heard you go when he said that, when Ira said that.
like at the time, I remember thinking Florida fans were basically trolling Florida State, but saying, you're too poor to fire Mike. You can't do it, and the program's going to be terrible. And now I look back and I think you shouldn't have said those things, because that's where you are right now. Florida can't afford to fire Billy Napier. I don't think anyone inside the building wants to. It's probably a vocal minority on social media that are saying that, but Florida can't afford to fire Billy Napier right now. And it's also to what you said, like, Florida's recruiting class is great. You have a franchise quarterback and a 5-star. DJ Lagway signed to your class. You've got other 5-stars. I think Xavier Filsamy might get a 5th star. And I'm blanking on our guy's name from Mainland.
LJ
McCray. Like, you've got a good class. You're going to need to hit the portal some, but there's also a factor of when Mike was struggling, Dan was taking Florida to the Orange Bowl. And now Florida's struggling, and Florida fans are having to watch Mike take FSU to like the doorstep of the college football playoff. So there's definitely some, peeking over the fence and looking at your neighbor's yard and saying, well, what are they doing over there?
Yeah, that's constantly an issue here, where, again, like if the most recent, the most obvious example for Florida State was in basketball when Leonard Hamilton, his first 6-7 years, he was doing a pretty good job, but Billy Donovan's winning national titles. And it's just like, man, it's tough to overcome that. Fortunately for Leonard Hamilton, Billy Donovan left. And so that helped a little bit, but I think that's always the issue. And, Jimbo Fisher, and I'm not trying to pile on Jimbo Fisher, even though I like to pile on Jimbo Fisher, he deserves praise for beating Florida and Miami so much. He did it at a great level, but they were both down the whole time he was here.
Sure.
So, it's all relative. And to your point, like if Florida State doesn't play well this weekend, Florida fans are going to have a whole different outlook on this offseason, and Florida State fans will feel like this season was not a disaster, but they're not going to feel the way they would if they won, obviously.
The only thing that's piled on Jimbo Fisher right now is just cash. Just cash and oil. That's all. Bathing in oil, wiping it off with $100 bills. Thank you very much, Texas A&M.
He's buying Bitcoin just to see what happens.
Yeah. What's that? What's Ira's new coin? Sure, we'll buy some Ira coin, whatever. Here it is. Take it.
Well, Ira, going into this season, what were your expectations for FSU and how they kind of matched up to where they're at now?
Pretty similar to what I thought. I didn't want to say like college football playoff or bust, because I felt like that was probably a lot to ask in a second year of a, kind of a resurgence. But I felt like ACC championship or bust. Like I felt like they had to get over the hump with Clemson. If they weren't going to do it this year, when were they going to do it?
Sure.
You would have a senior quarterback. They would have a fresh or a sophomore quarterback in Cade Klubnik. You brought in these players from the transfer portal, Keon Coleman, and some of these other players they brought in this year. So it just felt like, and so many of those guys are going to be gone after this year. So if you couldn't get over the hump this year, when would it happen? So my big focus was they've got to win the ACC this year. So they're in the championship game. We'll see if they win it, but they're in good shape to meet that goal. Getting to the playoff is huge, but I think it, again, like that LSU game was so big, and at halftime it wasn't looking great, but they came through and played really well in the second half and got that win. Duke was a tough game. Miami was a tough game. And so to get to the playoff, like you're going to have to win some of those close games. All these teams are. I mean, all those teams that are undefeated have a bunch of 2-point wins. And I mean, Washington's got 2-point wins and 3-point wins and comeback wins, and Ohio State and Michigan. So, it's just you kind of have to. You need a little bit of luck and to win those close games, and they've been able to do that. So it hasn't like far exceeded my expectations. It's probably about what I thought, but with just instead of something going wrong and cost you one of those games, things have kind of worked out right for them so far.
I remember watching that Clemson game. Clemson was close, and it was like the strip sack return for a touchdown. I'm like, oh, well, the game's over now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that play. Yeah, that play was enormous. If they don't get that, who knows? And even if well-designed scheme, and you get the blitz, and Klubnik doesn't see it, but even then, I don't know, 8 out of 10 times he just gets sacked. He doesn't fumble, but he fumbled. Or if he fumbles, maybe it goes and they recover it. But it could not have worked out any better for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then in overtime, Klubnik decides to
that's right.
to keep it or to throw it. So instead of giving it to Shipley.
It's been a tough season for Dabo.
And yeah, no doubt.
No. Ever since Tyler from Spartanburg called him out, they've been on a tear. No credit to Dabo, though. Credit to Tyler from Spartanburg, really firing the team up.
Yep, he did it.
Ira, I felt like there's been a few times this season, man, where Jordan's got hurt, and you just didn't know what if he was going to get up from it. And then obviously what happened to him last weekend was one of the toughest injuries I've seen, especially of late. What has it been like to see the season that he's had, him kind of deal with injuries and kind of show some toughness, and then have to have something like this happen right on the cusp of a college football playoff run?
Yeah, man, it's unlike anything I've covered, man. And I've been doing this for like 30 years total, and I've never seen anything like it, because it wasn't like you'll see. I mean, it's unfortunate, but like you'll see a gruesome injury every once in a while, where you'll see a key player go down. But like to see their key player, the guy who's kind of helped turn this whole thing around, and then also be a gruesome injury, and also in that North Alabama game, and it's just like, and they're playing so bad at that point, and so the feeling was he felt like he had to run because the offense started off so poorly, and so that's just it was everything. It was so many emotions, and and like you said, I mean, Jordan's been a guy that has taken a beating throughout the years, and he's always gotten back up. Even Alex Atkins, the offensive line coach, said this week, he said when he went down, he thought, okay, well, Jordan's going to hop right back up, and then all of a sudden Jordan's asking for the trainers, and everybody realized, okay, this is not the normal deal. And then obviously you see the images, but I think I'll be honest with you, I didn't know if they would be able to come back and win that game, even against North Alabama, because the players were, it looked like when you see people at the scene of an accident or something, where they're just distraught. It's a guy they're so close to, and it's a gruesome injury. And so for them to, it took a little while. I mean, it wasn't like they came right back out and played well, but they got a couple big plays went their way, and then all of a sudden it was like they second half felt like football again. But it, I not like anything. I mean, you felt queasy just watching it. So probably the worst, honestly, and you guys can relate, the worst I've ever felt watching anything was Keontae Johnson here. And that was, I mean, obviously much more serious because it was life threatening, but Jordan's was just also because of the fact of what he represents, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, he was if I'm mistaken, correct me, but committed to Willie Taggart, and then like that staff didn't really want him, and then he's been like recruited over, but just kind of been a program guy, stuck it out, do what I need to do to help the team, and then really found his footing in his place the last 2 years, and to have it happen with everything that's going on for Florida State and on senior day. And I think for what he represents is just somebody who has stayed the course in a day and age where if I'm not getting starting reps as a freshman, I can hit the transfer portal and get paid to go somewhere else. To see somebody who sticks it out like that at a position like that, I think is really commendable. And I think that probably plays into the reaction that we're seeing now for him.
Yeah, and he's been such his backstory is a little more complicated than that, but that's basically it. But yeah, he would have loved to have gone to Florida State out of high school, but he wasn't recruited. Jimbo Fisher didn't offer him, and he was, that staff wasn't really recruiting him that heavily. He ended up going to Louisville at first, Bobby Petrino, but that year was a disaster. It was pretty awful. Taggart comes in, and Kendall Briles comes in the next year. Kendall Briles had recruited him previously, so he got him. He convinced Willie Taggart to bring him in. They bring him in, but then they didn't use him at all, and he just sat at the end of the bench. And then, Norvell and his staff come in, and they're giving him a shot, but not really fully committed to him. Then they go get Mackenzie Milton and bring him out of the portal with still really only one good leg, and he starts over him. So it's just like, it's like, I don't know, if in a relationship, if there's a girl that you've been wanting for a long time and she just keeps kind of passing over you, and like every time you think this is it, and then she starts dating somebody else. That's how Jordan.
We would have told you, like, hey man, it's time to go find another girl. Like, listen, this girl wants nothing to do with you. There's plenty of fish in the sea out there. Let's go get you somebody.
Yeah, Jordan was definitely in the friend zone with Florida State for a while. And then what happened was in the middle of that year, 2021, they just realized Mackenzie couldn't do it. And they just were like, Jordan, you're all we've got. Like, and they just said, like, we're going to ride with you, Jordan. And that's when everything took off for him. And he just he finally started getting confidence, and And so of the last, the only nice thing about it all is, man, his last 17 games, he didn't lose a start. So, like, it's an awful way to end, but it's also, hey, man, you can always say your last season and a half of college football, you were unbeatable.
And what did I've joked a little bit that it's kind of like Freaky Friday with Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis. FSU loses a dual threat quarterback, now goes to Tate Rodemaker, who I've also been thinking of another movie, Rookie of the Year. I've been saying like Henry Rosengarten with Rodemaker's last name. So they have more of a pocket passer, not a statue, but a pocket passer. Florida loses their starting quarterback, who's a pocket passer, and they bring in a redshirt freshman. What can you tell us about Tate Rodemaker?
Yeah, so Tate is he was, one of the first recruits that Norvell brought in when he took the job. Norvell was recruiting him at Memphis. Rodemaker actually committed to USF, and he was going to go there. And then when Norvell got the Florida State job, like right before signing day, those December hirings, reached out to him, took a visit, committed, came to Florida State. And he was the second quarterback in that class. Chubba Purdy, Brock Purdy's little brother, was kind of seen as the more marquee quarterback. He was the 4-star. Tate was the 3-star. Mm-hmm. In that first year and a half, it was kind of seen as like Chubba's more the heir apparent, Tate's more like the safety blanket. And then Chubb ended up leaving. He tate frustrated because he knew he wasn't going to beat out Jordan Travis. And so he ends up going to Nebraska, and now hasn't really found a lot of success there. But when Tate became the top backup to Jordan, and he's really kind of taken off a little bit. I mean, like his first year or two here, there was not a lot of excitement or a lot of feeling around the program, even that Tate was going to be the guy. But he came in that game last year against Louisville, one of the games where Jordan got hurt. They're down on the road at Louisville, and it feels like this is going to be a loss. I mean, and then Tate comes in. The first thing he does is throw a pick. I mean, a terrible pick right to the linebacker right before halftime. And I think at that point, man, if you took the temperature of the Florida State fan base, everybody was just done with Tate Rodemaker, and then came out in the second half, played real well. He had one run, and like you said, he's not a statue. He can run. He's just not elusive. But he had a nice run that kind of got them going, moved the chains, and then Johnny Wilson makes a big catch for him, and just kind of they got going, and they ended up winning that game. And so he hasn't had another moment really like that till this past Saturday against North Alabama. So there's some, reason for confidence, but I think also everybody knows that, doing it in the swamp is going to be a lot different than doing it where he's done it so far.
We got a question from Avery. He wants to know, Ira, what should be FSU's biggest concern playing Florida? And I'm sure it probably relates to what we just talked about.
Yeah, that would be it. I mean, I think the fact that Florida just talking to Florida State's coaches, I haven't watched a ton of Florida play, but talking to Florida State's coaches, and the talk about all the exotic pressures and all the blitz packages that Florida is going to bring. I know that that's resulted in some big plays against them, but they could lead to big plays the other way. And that would be my concern. The one thing Tate has had an issue with, and he hasn't thrown a pick in a game this year. But it was a concern of his earlier in his career, and also sometimes at practice, that he can get a loose with the ball where he's got a big arm, and he really you saw it if you watched the end of that North Alabama game. He's got a big arm. He's got an NFL arm, but he has a tendency sometimes, like guys with big arms, to try to either fit into tight windows or not give up on a play. Like Jordan was pretty good about. He was just mature. He was a 5th, 6th year guy, so he would eat it. If he was going to get sacked. Miami had a couple sacks against him, and you hate to take a big sack, but it's a lot better than throwing it up for grabs. Those are the kinds of plays where if Florida brings a lot of pressure and Tate feels like I've got to make a play, and now he turns it over, that would be the biggest recipe for Florida State to get upset, I think.
Then we had a question at the start of the show. Well, let me pull it up. One related to this game from Jeffrey. Here we go. Wants to know, as a UF grad, if you're rooting for the Gators when they don't play FSU.
Man, not really. When I did go to UF, but my family was from the Northeast, And
Okay.
so they were not college football fans. I grew up in Miami, and I wasn't a college football fan. And honestly, I went to my sister had gone to UF, and when we dropped her off, it was the first college campus I'd ever been on. And I was just like, I looked around and I was like, I couldn't believe how pretty it was and what the girls looked like. And I was just like, I'm coming here. Like, I didn't know I really didn't even want to go to college before that, but I was like, okay, I want to go to this school. So anyway, I ended up going to UF and getting into journalism. But really, after my first year, so when I got into journalism school, they kind of beat it out of you. Some people you guys are familiar with, Chris Harry. When I was a student journalist at Florida, Chris Harry was merciless. I don't know what those guys are now like, but back then, man, they were. I mean, it was almost like hazing the way they just beat it out of you to the idea that you, not even if you weren't a fan, but they would act like you are a fan, and they would try to, so you would go so far overboard to not prove you're not a fan that you would end up kind of being extra critical. So anyway, so I never really had a lot of that long-term fan experience, especially once I started doing journalism. And then the other thing I tell people all the time, and I'm sure you guys tell people this too, it's like, once you covered college football, it's just hard to be, I don't know, to me anyway, it's just hard to be a super fan of anybody, because you realize that these are just people, and they're, you see the good, the bad. I don't know. They're individual players. Like the guys that were there when I was there, I covered Kevin Carter. I love Kevin Carter to death.
Great man.
I actually lived with Chris Doering for a year. I love Chris Doering to death. And there are people that from when I was there that I like or love. But yeah, I'm not a fan of, I haven't been a fan of really any sports team until the Orioles recently started playing well again.
That's right.
That's where I'm at. Yes.
I tell people all the time, you see a lot of on Twitter, a lot of sports journalists started watching like the British Soccer League. And it's like, okay, because like I could get a job covering the Dolphins, and now I'm not supposed to be a fan of any of the NFL teams, but all the people are like, listen, I'm not going to live in Sheffield, England. There's no way, no amount of money. So like I can start cheering, and it lets us be a fan of something that, we might not end up covering, but you definitely get that fandom kind of beaten out of you in J school. That's for sure.
Yes.
There's no doubt. And then final thing for you, Ira, with Florida side, with their backup quarterback situation, a lot of expectation for Max Brown's legs to be featured more in this offense, and just a new element. What will that be like for FSU trying to defend that? Is that something that's given them issues in the past, running quarterbacks, or is that something they're pretty equipped to defend?
Yeah, it's weird because it's almost like there's both sides of it. There's, on the one hand, it's not new because they've seen a lot of it. On the other side, they've given up plenty of yards to running quarterbacks. I mean, Thomas Castellanos from Boston College had a huge game again, almost beat them. I mean, they almost lost that game because Castellanos just was unconscious. He hit some passes, but they could not deal with him as a running quarterback. Jane Daniels had some success running the football against them. Other quarterbacks have as well. So it's a challenge. So they've seen it a lot, but I wouldn't say they've mastered it either. They did a pretty good job against Virginia Tech's quarterback as a runner. Where it could give them some trouble is they play a ton of man. And so, those are situations where, like, if you guys are chasing receivers down the field and this guy squeezes out, you could have problems. So it won't surprise me at all if he has some success running the football. Their numbers are deceiving. Like their rushing defense numbers have not looked good all year, but a lot of it's because of those running quarterbacks. Teams that like traditional power running games, they've done pretty well against them. But yeah, I mean, a running quarterback can give them some trouble.
And how much before Florida played Arkansas, I warned people. I was like, hey, you fired your offensive coordinator. Defense is about finding patterns and tendencies to make your game plan. There are no patterns and tendencies with a first-time offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Do you think Florida State is going back and looking at University of Louisiana film and, hey, this is how they used Levi, who was a running quarterback? Because for the 2 years Florida's been here, Anthony Richardson, even though he was a dual threat quarterback, was injured for most of the year, and they didn't really run him that way. So is that an issue? It's just that Florida doesn't have a lot of film to study and to find those patterns and tendencies.
Yeah, no, they basically, it sounds like they're doing all kinds of research. And I think that's probably a challenge in a short window because they wouldn't have known that this was going to happen just 3 or 4 days ago. But yeah, they've gone back to watch what Max did in high school. I think they're going back to watch what Louisiana's done when they've had a more mobile quarterback. And I think that there's some familiarity there. I think that they're familiar with what Coach Napier has done. So I don't think it's going to be starting from scratch. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's created a challenge. I'm going to guess though they'd rather still play this guy than Graham Mertz.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just think that Graham Mertz has been way better than certainly I expected and probably most people expected. So I think while Jordan Travis nationally is better known, I feel like Florida State might be a little better equipped with Tate Rodemaker, a fourth-year guy in the system, than Florida might be going from Graham Mertz to redshirt freshman. But I guess they'll both create equal challenges.
And then final but most important question for you, Ira, your favorite Thanksgiving dish?
So, man, I've got the problem. It's like choosing between your favorite kids. I actually answered this to somebody else because, man, I love Thanksgiving dinner. I mean, my mom used to kill it. And so I just, and you can look at me, I don't miss many meals. But so I just give me some mashed potatoes and a big thing of gravy. Like I'm in love with that. Yeah. But my wife makes a really good dish. It's called corn souffle. Some people call it corn pudding, but corn souffle. But it's I love that, man. It's got cream corn, but it's like I could eat a plate of that. So yeah, man, it's I'm looking forward to that. There's no, man, some people don't love Thanksgiving food. I would eat Thanksgiving food every week. So
who are those people?
I don't know, man, but I remember back in like high school and the day they would have turkey and mashed potatoes, and I'd be like, sign me up. Give me that processed turkey you're serving. And I'm all about it.
Turkey or ham?
Oh, I'm turkey all the way. I like ham fine, but I'm turkey all the way. How about you guys?
I'm a ham guy. Turkey's got to be, you got to cook turkey well.
If the turkey's cooked right, then I'll eat the turkey all day. But
if it's not, I just smother it in gravy.
Yeah, that's true. That's what the gravy's for.
But on my way home this afternoon, I passed by the Honey Baked Ham Company.
Yeah.
Dude, the line, you would have thought it was like a Taylor Swift concert. There were 50. I mean, I couldn't see the end of the line for people. I don't know. I guess you just wait till the last minute to get the ham. I don't know. I don't know, but it was, you guys are not alone with the ham.
Thankfully I got my wife and mom and mother-in-law doing all the planning and buying and cooking, and Nick and I just get to show up.
There you go.
Show up, watch football, wear stretchy pants.
Well, Ira, we appreciate the time, man. Hope you enjoy your holiday and have a safe trip to Gainesville. We'll see you Saturday, bud.
Look forward to it, and see my buddy Niebuhr too. He was
that's right,
the Alligator back in the day together. So looking forward to it, guys.
Awesome. Take care, man. Appreciate the time.
Ira. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too, guys. Thanks.
All right, we got Ira from War Chant joining us to talk Seminoles and what's been quite the run for them under Mike Norvell. That's culminated in a great year, but an unfortunate turn of events with their quarterback's season-ending injury. And now we get the backup bowl in the Swamp. Let's get to this Bird Dogs ad read before we talk about what's going down in the Swamp on Saturday. And want to encourage all Florida fans to go to birddogs.com/Gators or use the promo code Gators to get a free Hydro Flask style water bottle with your purchase. And that could include the hat, the polo, the khaki shorts, pants. We have it all, wear it all, enjoy it all, and definitely encourage you guys to go check it out. The polo's kind of been a regular in our wardrobe and mine for sure. And then the Bird Dog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better than regular shorts. A lot of great products that they have on their site. So make sure you go check them out at birddogs.com and use that promo code /Gators. And on Saturday, it will be senior day for expected to be 17 players as of now, from what I'm told, as of recording this podcast on Wednesday. So we're a little early. Maybe could be some last minute change of events or additions or subtractions?
Well, like last year,
because didn't Osiris Torrance decide like at the last second to do
Osiris Torrance was like had to be told. Like Osiris Torrance. I told him. I think when we had him on the podcast, Zach. I think I told him, or maybe it was after. It might have been later in the year. I'm like, you're the only person in this room that doesn't know like how good you are and what your future is. Like he had to be told by like Billy Napier and Rob Sale, like, hey, you need to go to the NFL. Like, Coach, I have eligibility. I have eligibility left. Like, we understand that, but you're going to be a millionaire in 3 months, and it's time for you to go to the NFL. Like, we would love to have you back. Believe us, we'd love that. But it's time to go get paid. So Cyrus Torrance was basically told last minute, like week of, like, hey man, you're walking for senior day. He's like, next year, right? And they're like, call your family and get them into town. You're walking for senior day. So Florida this year, if you are graduating in the fall, or if you're going to play, if you're on pace to graduate in the spring, they will let you walk. I mean, we're in some weird territory because of COVID, where you could have a redshirt sophomore, I guess on the roster, be graduating. I think we had that last year. A redshirt sophomore was one of the guys that walked a walk on. But it's a really cool moment for your guys to walk, and the people who have been by your side the whole time to be there. I asked Ricky Pearsall about it. He said, listen, no shame in my game. No shame in crying. It's probably going to happen. Walk down, see mom and dad, sister, and everyone, because those are the people that helped you get to this point. And it's definitely an emotional day. I love watching senior days across the country. Get there early. You've got all day to drink. Get to your seats early and make some noise for the guys as they walk out of that tunnel, that south end zone tunnel, one last time.
And if you are subscribed to Gators Online and you have read our War Room piece, then the list of expected players that are going to take part in Senior Day ceremony. Why that's significant is because of some of the guys who are deciding to walk, some of the guys who are not walking. And if you go to GatorsOnline.com, you can
right now
see this list because it's not out yet. The Florida Gators have not released the list because it's still not finalized. There's still some guys they're not sure what they're going to do. We've learned of some of the plans of some of those guys. I'm not going to reveal them all. I want you to go to Gators Online to read it. And if you haven't, this is a jam-packed War Room insider piece, and you can read it for just $1 if you're not subscribed. So definitely encourage you to go do that, because we don't just have Senior Day, reports and where things are at with juniors and the transfer portal, but we got practice insider, and we got a bunch of recruiting tidbits as well with a huge weekend coming up. So again, we could spend half the show just talking about all the stuff that's in this week's report. So, but what is significant, there's 2 seniors that are not going to walk, and they're expected back. One we're reporting in this story is expected to be back for 2024. Another, Keon Zipper, has already said that he, was eyeing a 2024 return. So he's one of the guys that is not going to do it. And then you look at the list of guys that are going to take part in the ceremony. There are 9 scholarship players, but as of now, it looks like 5 of them are classified as juniors. And I say classified because
who knows what classification you are with that 2020 COVID season, baby.
Well, with every single 4 of them are redshirt juniors. One of them, Jonathan Odom, is just classified as a junior. But every single one of those guys has spent either 4 or 5 years in college and just has an extra year of COVID eligibility, which is why they're classified as a junior. Like Jonathan Odom has been on campus since 2020. So, but there are some other guys that are walking that still have a decision to make. Now, one of those guys does not have a decision to make. It is basically out now today as we record this Wednesday that Kingsley Aguakin is turning pro. because he has accepted his invite to the East-West Shrine Bowl. It already came out that he was going to take part in the Senior Day ceremony, and this is a guy that's been on campus since 2019. But he still has another year of eligibility left, and he's missed most of the season. So theoretically, he could have decided to come back if he wanted to, and I don't think the staff would have turned him away. But he is deciding to move on and try his shot with the NFL. And, obviously he's got plenty of film to show, what he's done throughout the SEC, but didn't get to really play this year. But he'll be playing in the East-West Shrine Bowl, and he'll be going through the Senior Day ceremony, as will Jaden Hill, Jalen Kimber, Jalen Humphreys, and as I mentioned, Odom, all juniors. And the 4 seniors, we knew that they would be walking, and this would be their last day, and that's Pearsall, Taraja Mitchell, Dante Zanders, and Lindell Hudson. But Jaden Hill still has a decision to make. And, he's another guy that's been on campus since 2019, like a Guacan. He's been through injuries. I personally think he's had a great year, probably one of the best defenders on Florida's defense. Does he feel like he's done enough and is, knock on wood, made it through the year healthy and wants to try and move on? If he decides to come back, which he said that he does not know what his plans are yet, Florida would gladly welcome him back. But I think
they definitely would. I think he said that with a little bit of a smirk when asked. He'll be 23 in March. That means he'll be 24 if he stays. By the time the next draft comes along, I would expect Jaden Hill to leave, and he's not going to.
I think he's played well enough to leave.
He's not going to get a first round grade or a second round grade, but you're probably not going to get a first or a second round grade next year, and you're just older next year.
Yeah,
that's all you are. So I would expect Jaden Hill to leave. Not trying to ruin anybody's spotlight or anyone's moment, but if you're asking me if I would expect him to be back, I'd have to say no. He's had his best year. He's been able to stay healthy, which is a big thing for him.
So huge.
And
he's played well at that star spot, man. They finally got some stability there, and now he's going to leave. So Sharif Denson time, baby.
Number 0.
Yep, that'll be the guy taking that over in 2024 if Hill does indeed decide to leave. I think Jonathan Odom is a guy been here 4 years. He's going to graduate. So, Jalen Humphreys is kind of in that same boat. These are 2 guys that I think we expected to probably decide to move on. So, and then there's going to be some guys that have decisions to make as juniors that are not taking part in the Senior Day ceremony, such as a Graham Mertz, a Princely Umanmielen, Montrell Johnson, Micah Mazuka.
Let's play that game. Should they stay or should they go?
Well, I mean, I think Graham Mertz could turn pro.
There's no sense in him turning pro. He's no.
What I mean by that is I don't think for his ability and his chance to make it that he needs another year in college. I just think it'd be he might probably want that experience, and then in terms of better chances of being positioned in the draft, it could make sense for him to come out next year because it just won't be as stacked as this class is.
He's QB 10 in this draft class.
Yeah, but is he gonna have a better shot of having a long NFL career if he stays another year in college? I don't think that's going to necessarily change his longevity. I just think that he probably came to Florida with the expectation that I got 2 years left, and I'm probably going to be here for 2 years. And the fact that it's even a conversation is great because that's how well he's played. But I think he comes back, and honestly, I think that's Billy obviously wasn't going to spoil his moment when asked about it this week in the presser, but that's a great moment for Florida if he wants to kind of have a day where he just announces that and gives some juice for the fan base and old Wolf of Wall Street. I'm coming back.
I ain't leaving.
ain't leaving.
There are a couple guys. I think Micah Mazuka, Kingsley Aguakin, and Austin Barber are the three that I'm looking at on the offensive line. And listen,
Kingsley's already. I mean, Kingsley's out.
It could be. He could change his mind. He could get his draft paperwork back and look at it and be like, okay, 4th, 5th round doesn't seem cool.
Yeah.
I think
most of the
Mazuka's
time when they accept those invitations, they don't go back on them. Though.
Right.
I think we know what his intentions are.
I think his intention is to leave, but he could play Friday and break his ankle. And hey, I'm coming back.
Let's not say that.
I'm just saying, like, he has not officially declared. He has accepted, but it's not set in stone. Mike and Mazuka, Austin Barber, those are guys I think heading into this year, their intention was to finish the 2023 season and declare for the draft. Now, Barber's dealing with an injury. Mike and Mazuka dealt with an injury preseason. So those are three guys on the offensive line, all who were supposed to be starters. I don't really consider Kingsley Aguakin a starter for this year just because of the time that he's missed. Those are three guys that Florida would love to have back just for depth and for veteran. I mean, they would start if they came back next year, but you're also going to need to find depth behind them. And three guys that I'd be watching and will be watching closely over the next several weeks here.
And then, I think that, Princely Umanmielen is an interesting one because I thought that he's
gone.
I always thought that too, but he did say that he's still up in the air. The staff was recruiting him to come back. So we'll see. But senior day, it's going to be quite the day for Florida because of FSU, going down. And man, what a way if they can get a win, Nick. What a way it would be to send the seniors out after kind of what they've been through the last few years.
Yeah. As a senior, you always want to say you left the program better than when you got there. I don't know if this senior class can say that, but if you end your senior season with a win over Florida State, number 5 Florida State, it's certainly a high note.
Yeah. And, that's what they're going to shoot for now. And we will kind of get into our keys to the game here. Want to give a read and a shout out to My Perfect Franchise real quick before Nick and I give our keys to the game. If you're ready to leave the corporate rat race for the American dream, looking for a side hustle while working your current job, wanting to diversify, build wealth, and or leave a legacy, Andy can help. Andy's a franchise consultant as well as a franchise owner and helps people find franchises that fit their skill sets, financial requirements, time to commit, and more. His services are 100% free, and he's here to help. If you have any questions about business ownership, you can learn more and contact Andy anytime at myperfectfranchise.net or calling or texting him at 404-973-9901. And let's also give a shout out to Prairie Dental Center. The doctor's a UF grad who's practiced in Gainesville for 3 decades and developed a deep understanding of how to diagnose and treat various dental problems. If you're having dental concerns or just need a cleaning, Prairie Dental Center offers a wide range of personalized care options to meet your needs. Give their office a call at 352-373-3431. Tell them Gators Online sent you, and your new patient exam will be free. And we get now into our keys to the game for Saturday's matchup between Florida and Florida State. Another night game in the Swamp, another sold-out crowd. And, the last time Florida played a rival in the Swamp at night, that stadium had an impact on the game. No doubt about it. And I think, Florida will be counting on their fans to show up and show out because I think they're going to need all the help they can get in this matchup, Nate.
Yeah, I think I would not well, you won't get my pick until Friday, but I would not have picked Florida to beat Florida State if Jordan Travis was playing, even though he is the diet version of Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels has 600 yards, so diet Jaden Daniels would probably do well against Florida anyway. but I think it's a game that Florida can win. The Gators really, in all of their losses, have only been non-competitive in 2. Non-competitive against Georgia, that was always going to be the case, and non-competitive against Kentucky.
Yeah, that's what Princely said this week.
With the game plan you took to Kentucky, you weren't going to compete. You weren't going to out Kentucky. And those are 2 teams that are very similar to each other. Big, strong, physical on both lines of scrimmage. Florida State, I don't know that their offensive line is great. I think the defensive line is good. You can run the football at those edge rushers. I feel better about having Max Brown with his legs, with the way Florida's offensive line has looked. Big thing for me is Rodemaker has like Ira said, a great arm. I don't love Florida's secondary covering Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman. Even when Keon Coleman's covered, that dude is just catching balls on top of people's foreheads.
Yeah.
Pause. I think that's going to be a key for me, is getting to Rodemaker and figuring out a way to not let Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson beat you, because I think you want to stop the running game, but now you've got 2 really big weapons. Johnny Wilson is the size of a power forward playing receiver, and Keon Coleman plays as big as Johnny Wilson is. So that's going to be a huge key for me, is not letting those big explosive plays. Florida, nobody lets up more 40-yard plays than the Florida Gators in the country. Don't let that beat you. And Florida State has 2 guys on the outside that can beat you that way.
Yeah, and I tell you what, man, when you look at this statistical matchup, Nick, and you've seen this breakdown for this week between Florida and Florida State, man, it does not look good for Florida. You don't get the SEC comparison because they're in the ACC, obviously, but you get the FBS comparison. And in this chart that we get that breaks down this matchup, Nick, FSU has the edge over Florida in every single major category except 1. Punt return average. The Gators are averaging 10.79 yards per return. The Noles are averaging 10.15.
Electric special teams from the Florida Gators all year long.
So their only advantage that they have is, not even a full yard advantage. So this is a tough matchup for Florida, but the Seminoles don't have their starting quarterback and their electric runner as well behind center. So I think that there is some things that Florida can do in this matchup, but this is seemingly key every week. But it's going to have to be a key once again this week, just because of how last game played out and what we saw. And again, it was early on in his time in the game, and he was in there with Montrell Johnson, who he probably doesn't rep a lot with. But obviously the fumble from Max Brown and just Florida's turnover situation in general, taking care of the ball, trying to create turnovers. The one thing that I don't want to say folks have taken for granted, but because turnovers have been such a topic this season with this team. But, Graham Mertz's ability to take care of the ball, at least through the air. Now, he's had some sack fumbles and not really at the fault of him. But in terms of interceptions, he's only had 3, which is the fewest in the SEC among starting quarterbacks. So, you lose a guy who was very good about taking care of the football and where to go with it and being accurate with his passes and not turning it over at least through the air. So, now you go from a quarterback like that to Max Brown, who doesn't have that experience, who probably doesn't have that accuracy. So I think it's important for him to be able to make smart throws, to not throw into too tight of windows or in a double coverage or triple coverage, and turn the ball over. And obviously it's not just the fumble exchange he had, but through the air and trying to not, go from a guy in Graham Mertz who rarely threw an interception to Max Brown have a game where he throws 2-3 picks. That's going to be a recipe for disaster. And then the defensive side still last in the SEC in takeaways and interceptions, tied for 127th in the country in both of those categories. You are getting a backup quarterback making his second career start in the swamp at night in a rivalry game. Get the ball, force some turnovers, make him uncomfortable, find ways to get a sack fumble on him. And then certainly if you can force him into some errant throws and get an interception in the secondary. The last time the Gators were at home against a rival this season and got the big win over Tennessee, that was part of the keys to that game, was a huge interception by Devin Moore that got returned deep into Tennessee territory. So Florida's got to have something like that, Nick, in this game for sure.
Got to have breaks. And I do think I don't know how you quantify how many points a home crowd is in a game, but I think that Florida fans have the potential to make an impact in this game. We talked about going back to Joe Milton. What would Joe Milton's first SEC road start look like? Well, it looked bad, and Florida fans were electric, fantastic that night. Felt like the swamp of old. Definitely the best environment of the season in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. You have another opportunity at 7 p.m. ESPN. They gave you the A team for TV. My goodness, got Chris Fowler and Herbie gave you the A+ team. But screw those guys. You can film the game and watch it later. Florida needs to have an electric crowd, and they need to play off of that crowd this Saturday.
And then, the last key for me, and it's, I guess it's two kind of tied into that, but it's what Florida has been chasing all year and has yet to pull off, and really only did it once last season, and that was against South Carolina when they pitched a shutout defensively. But that's play a complete game, and it's something that they've been chasing all year. They've yet to do it and play well in all three phases in one game. And I think that's going to be required. They might not get a complete fourth quarter performance from all three units, but if they can just get a game where they all look like the defense, right? They've given up over 40 points and over 500 yards or 450 yards, and when it feels like the last 5 straight games, like, this is a game where maybe you don't give up over 300 yards passing to a quarterback. Maybe you don't give up 450 total yards of offense. Maybe you don't give up 40-plus points. Maybe the defense actually shows up. I'm very excited to see what we get from the offense. I don't think maybe it'll be as clean or as efficient as it was with Mertz, but I think Max Brown is going to make some plays, and I think that they got enough pieces around him to still be pretty potent offensively. And then, last but not least, hey, it's senior day, right, Nick? What better way to go out than a Ricky Pearsall punt return touchdown, right?
It sounds like Willy Wonka with these crazy ideas.
I think they need if they don't get a major play on special teams, they at very least no miscues, no back-breaking, game-changing, momentum-swinging mistakes. Get all 11 guys on the field, and then, hey, why don't you make a play? Block a kick, return a punt, flip the field. Jeremy Crawshaw's going to show up. Nick knows that.
Potentially a big game for us, Zach. You and I have pulled away, thanks to Keith's pick last week. You and I have pulled away.
Man.
Do we both pick the same this week and grab the first place trophy together, hold it up, put it up in the air together, or do we pick differently and do we get a first place winner. I went from last place last year to potentially first or second this year in picks.
And if we were judging off your preseason predictions,
Just
no
a
one's
legend.
touching you.
Legend.
I mean, you completely redeemed yourself from the 2021 season or 22 season. I don't know what I'm gonna pick, man. I don't know. I was definitely tempted to pick Florida once Jordan Travis got hurt and before Graham Mertz got hurt. And then Graham Mertz got hurt and Max Brown fumbled in the red zone. And I was like, oh, this could be a long game for Florida. And then another one the following week. And then Max Brown played like he did in the fourth quarter. I'm like, I don't know. I think he might rush for 100 yards on Saturday.
Sounds like you might pick Florida.
Do you think he'll rush for 100 yards or close to it?
I'm giving you nothing. I won't even put my prediction into the back end of our.
I'm not asking you for a prediction. I'm asking you for expectations on Max Brown's rushing total. What's your over under?
Max Brown could run for 100. The over under has to be
69
every week. Over under 69.5. Over 69. We were 56 last week, Zach, in a quarter.
What did he do? 56?
I think so.
Well, then remember, he also had a sack, which, Billy Napier has been quick to point out they don't do it right with their stats in college. So that, he had 42 yards. He had 42 yards rushing, but I think he really had 49 because his sack was for 7 yards. It was a 7-yard loss. So he ran 6 carries for 49 yards in a quarter against a top 10 defense. So I think he could hit 100 on Saturday. Well, we appreciate Ira for joining us, all of you for commenting and following along. We obviously had to do this a day early because of Thanksgiving. So hope everybody out there enjoys your holiday, enjoys time with family and friends, and a good home-cooked meal if you get it. And if not, hopefully you have some place to get some good food or at least enjoy your day off. So we will reconvene in the swamp on Saturday night to give you our rapid reaction from this rivalry renewed between Florida and Florida State. So, Nick, until then, next time I see you, you'll be probably 4 or 5 pounds heavier. So, but hope everybody enjoys Thanksgiving. Thanks again to Ira for joining us, and we will see you guys late Saturday night. For Nick Del Torre, I'm Zach Albaverdi.